Thought Quickie. You can't verbalize a thought without words, but can you think a thought without words? So much of our thought process involves forming words and sentence structures in our minds. The Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis, also known as linguistic relativity, suggests that the structure of a language influences the way its speakers perceive and think about the world around them. For example, Eskimos have dozens of words for snow, at least when you include words modified by suffixes. Central Siberian Yupik has 40 words. In Nunavut, the Inuktitut dialect spoke in Canada's Nunavik region has at least 53, including Matsaruti for wet snow that can be used to ice a sleigh's runners, and Pukak for snow that's powdery. They have a unique need to differentiate between these types of snow, whereas English only has one generic term for snow. For another example, the Hopi, the structure of their language results in them having a unique view of time. But I could make a whole other quickie about that. And I will. Stay tuned. So imagine if we were all speaking Klingon or Dothraki. Our thoughts and perspectives might be entirely different. And that's kind of cool when you think about it. But at the same time, it also raises questions about whether certain ways of thinking are inherently better than others. Why did most of science and Enlightenment thinking arise out of the English-speaking world? Is it just a coincidence, or is there something about English that encourages that kind of thinking? English is uninflected and context-driven with a much simpler sentence structure, making it easier to think about and communicate new ideas. And a lot of that was developed over a rich literary tradition. Although, plenty of other languages have their own advancements. Italians certainly played their role in the Enlightenment, and look at how many innovations came from the Chinese. There's also evidence showing that bilinguals often think differently depending on which language they're speaking at the time. Languages have different structures. For example, French and German put genders on all sorts of things that English doesn't. There are indications that both native bilinguals and those who learn a second language later in life can experience shifts in cognition and problem solving based on the language they're currently using. Native bilinguals tend to show more flexible thinking patterns, whereas late bilinguals may exhibit improved cognitive control. Just imagine being able to switch your mindset on demand by simply switching languages. Talk about having a secret power. Of course, the hypothesis is not without its criticisms. The correlation between language and thought isn't as clear-cut as the hypothesis suggests. While language can shape how we talk about things, it doesn't necessarily dictate how we actually think about them. I mean, how many times have you had a thought but had difficulty finding the words to express it? Language acts as a tool for communication and self-expression, but it doesn't determine our inner thoughts and feelings. And one strange wrinkle, there's a lack of consensus among linguists about what exactly constitutes a language, which makes it hard to pin down any specific effects on cognition. But the limitations of language can sometimes lead to an impoverishment of our mental experiences. That's why we keep borrowing words from other languages like schadenfreude. Ever since that was coined in English, people have been much more aware of this effect and noticed it in themselves and others, just because we now had a word for it. And then there's all the new lingo that's arisen just because we started communicating over the internet. English is a very different language than it was a few hundred years ago just for this reason.